Welcome to episode 44 of the Focus on Gaming podcast. My name is Tom, and I'm here with
Duncan,
Martin,
and Michael Nurney, who is the author of 8-Bit Stories, fantastic book, which I do have with me here. Hey. All about the 8-bit era in the UK. Fantastic read, Michael. I really
Thank you very much.
You sending us a copy to go through.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. So, what was your inspiration for the book? Tell us more about it.
Well, I've always had an unhealthy appetite and interest in computing, even from a very young age. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to be born in the very early 70s. So when the 80s rolled around, I was there when the ZX80, 81, the Spectrums, Commodore 64s, and all the rest of it appeared on our shores. But unfortunate enough, as a youth, I was unavailable to buy most of them due to the fact that we couldn't afford them. So I lusted after these machines that I could ill afford until I reached teenage years, early teens, and Mum very graciously bought me one. And then all hell broke loose, where I went to school and we all talked about various computers and girls and, all the rest of it. Tuck shop and various important things of the day. But computing was, what game have you got? Have you got this? Have you got that? Have you got the other? My game's fantastic on the Spectrum, but it's rubbish on the 64. Some unlucky kid had a BBC. Someone had whatever, an MSX or whatever hell they had. All different machines.
What was your first machine?
My first computer was a Texas Instruments TI-99.
Wow.
Which was a blessing and a curse. I mean, it was a fantastic piece of kit to someone who had never seen a computer before. Mm. And I loved it. I thought, even as a youth, a kid of whatever, 12 or something, I thought it was well made, it was shiny, it was heavy, it looked like it cost lots of money. It did, but, not till as I got it secondhand. But I thought it was fabulous. Went to school the next day or next week, whatever it was, and was instantly laughed at for buying Texas Instruments TI-99. I didn't know why. Hey, what did I know? All the other kids had the brand new shiny ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64. One or two had the BBC, and I think that was about it in those early days. Later, a couple of kids got the Auric. They were laughed at instead of me, which was great. The TI-99, I thought it was fabulous, and I thought everybody had one. Nobody had one except me. My ignorance, I thought the shops would be full of stuff for my shiny new computer. No shops had anything for my computer.
And your budget was quite tight for this purchase,
Yes, it was. It was, I don't know, 30, 40 quid or whatever it was in those days. So it was a couple of years old when I got it. And the chap selling it said at the time, I can't get software for it. And I thought, don't be silly. You can just go to the shop and get some. But no, you can't. You can't go to the shop because nobody had it. Nobody stocked it. Nobody sold it. It was being sold off for whatever it was, 30 or 40 pounds at Argos. Nobody wanted the damn thing. You couldn't give it away.
No, I was one of the Spectrum people. Tom was one of the
Amstradites.
Amstrad. See, that was later. That was a couple of years later in the future.
Yeah. Martin, you've got a question?
Yeah. So was there any particular software on that you did find, or what did it came with?
It came with the usual sort of thing of a second-hand computer. It came with a bundle of cassettes with handwritten labels with exotic sounding names that were in fact absolutely dreadful, typed in rubbish, written in BASIC. But they sounded great on the the label. The C15 cassette from Double 8 Smiths or Boots sounded amazing. They were awful. Very like stick men walking up and down the screen with being chased by an Asterix or something. That was it. It was that sort of quality.
So you haven't returned to that with?
Oh yes, I love it. Great.
Oh, you love it. Oh,
never mind Fallout 76. Get me that stick man with the Asterix on every time.
I still remember one of my favourite games that we had on the Spectrum was where we had a book that had about one of these 1,000 games.
Yeah,
and I just loved the fact that you could change it. And there was one particular game that was motocross. It was just one single pixel thing, and it looked like a trolley. But the beauty of those things is that we changed it so it was then called Tesco Shopping Trolley Simulator.
Brilliant.
And you just had to get a shopping trolley across some bumps.
But in your imagination, did it look like a motocross motorcycle?
Absolutely not. It was. I would have been about probably 8 or 9 kind of thing, and my sister and me were sitting there, and we changed all the titles and everything. So everything said Tesco shopping trolley. I think when you got to the end of the screen, I think we changed it so it said sort of "Well done, you've got your shopping" or something like that.
Brilliant. Have you still got a copy?
Oh, unfortunately, no. That book is long gone, I think. Although my dad is not a hoarder, but keeps things, so he probably has still got the book.
Oh, excellent. You need to find it.
Do you still own the consoles, Michael? So like
I have a very hit and miss relationship with consoles. My first experience of a console was the Atari VCS 2600 that my friend had down the road, and he had probably 6 games or something. One of them was Spider-Man. One was the Star Wars thing with the walkers, Empire Strikes Back, and a couple of other horrible square things that made no sense. But the Star Wars one I really liked. I thought it was great. The Spider-Man one was a dreadful blocky mess, like you were controlling a Lego man. And the other 2 or 3, I don't remember what they were. They were awful. So I found myself borrowing this console for a week, playing Star Wars for a week, and then giving it back because I couldn't do anything with it except play Star Wars, which was great. But I wanted to do other things. I wanted to, play with the sound. I wanted to make the screen flash colours and write naughty words on the screen, as every kid does. You can't do that with a console. So I lost interest really very quickly in the Atari 2600, and I never touched a console again until probably the Saturn.
Oh wow!
So quite a long time.
Yeah.
Which no one could do anything with.
So you had the Texas Instruments, and then first console in age is the Saturn.
Yeah.
You thought you were cursed, I think.
Yeah, consoles never, and I've got the Saturn by accident. I actually went to buy a Dreamcast to play. I can't remember what game it was. I saw something. I thought that looks great. I'm going to go get that, and I bought the wrong machine. So I came back with a Saturn, which was rubbish. But having said that, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was at the time. There was very little software for it when it first came out. It was expensive and didn't do what I wanted it to do, so I got rid of it.
Yeah.
But the Dreamcast was what I really wanted, but I got the wrong one. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Do you own or have a collection of 8-bit machines now, or 8-bit games?
I have a loft full of computers, not hard drives, disk drives, wafer drives, tape drives, all kinds of wonderful things, printers, plotters, graphics pads, joysticks, bags full of joysticks, horrible things that creak and groan when you move them. And they're all wonderful in their own special way.
I hope you flagged your loft.
In the loft, did you say?
In the loft. Imagine Indiana Jones, the end of the film. That's my loft.
Yeah.
It's full of
Are you constantly recapping because the cold air is destroying him?
Yeah, I'm constantly recapping and doing video mods and trying to get better quality output out of them. The days are long gone of tuning to the spare channel on your TV to get a reception.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
I've actually been spending the last week researching the cables to link the Amstrad CPC 464 to my 4K TV.
Yeah.
Because no SCART connections any longer.
Yeah.
And what a saga. It's unbelievable.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So that's something that I'm still looking into, and maybe I can create my own. So So what was your favorite story in the book? What was the thing that stands out for you?
Oh goodness. I mean, annoyingly, I go to quite a lot of shows, and I meet lots and lots of people, and lots of very interesting people that I've never heard of and sit and chat to them at the bar usually, and we chat about all kinds of things. And I love it. I love chatting to people and hearing all the interesting things. You know, why was the Commodore 64 brown? Why was the Spectrum black? Why do the keyboards so crap on the Spectrum? And all the rest of it. Why is every color brown on a Commodore 64? And all that sort of thing. And people tell me all kinds of things. And inevitably, after a few beers, the stories get a little bit juicy. And I can't really, write them down, unfortunately, which is quite annoying because they're the best ones.
Funny enough, Gary Bracey told us the same thing.
I have had a chat with Gary. So anyway, what's the best stories? I don't know really. I mean, what started the concept of the book really was I was fascinated by the collapse of Commodore, and before that, Texas Instruments. Texas Instruments didn't collapse, but the computer division did, and this was the initial crux of the story, the book rather. And I researched for probably 3 or 4 years almost why Texas Instruments computer division failed, what went wrong, and I spoke to a few of the people there, but unfortunately none of them really wanted to go on record, so I can't really include any of that, so I didn't, annoyingly. So that was the crux of the story of Texas Instruments. And then the more I read about Texas Instruments, the more the story of the fight with Commodore became apparent. Everyone knows there was a beef between Jack Tramiel and Texas Instruments. That's it's no surprise. But the amount of bad blood that there was, and the amount that Jack Tramiel wanted to see Texas Instruments collapse, I didn't really realize it was, that important to Jack Tramiel. Obviously it was. But the story of Texas Instruments is quite interesting, so much as Commodore sort of, dug the knife in, but Texas Instruments were fantastic at, destroying their own business. They made every wrong decision you could think of and then reveled in it. You think, what's wrong with these people? They have no idea how to run a business.
Yeah.
But then Commodore go from the glory years of the very early 80s to an absolute shower, not a bit swear, but the absolute, shower from the mid 80s on. Just dreadful. And that became more interesting as I delved into Commodore, and then the cross between Texas Instruments and Commodore, and then a little bit of Sinclair. And then by the time I'd done, I'd got 1,000+ pages of hundreds of thousands of words, all about these 2 or 3 companies. And I thought, well, there were other companies. So I started to look at Auric, Tangerine, and Einstein, and Sam Coupe, and MGT, and all the rest of it. And before you know where you are, you've got millions of bloody words, and it's a jumbled mess of all. So I've had to tear lumps out of it and try and put it into some sort of legible manner, which is far more difficult than I envisioned, to be honest.
You did a really good job, I have to say. I especially like the fact that on certain pages you show the different pricing for the machine through the years, and
that was more difficult to research than I thought, because everyone tells you a different price. Every magazine, every newspaper, and every company,
special offers. And
absolutely.
And all that
it's complete nonsense. And then you go into a shop and it'd be a different price anyway. So I tried to find an average, and I fully expected everybody to say, "Well, that's not right." August of 1984, I think you find that was $199, and I'm sure it was. I'm not going to argue, but I tried to find an average.
They didn't have official launch prices like they do nowadays, where they'll say we launched them at this price.
The superstar of launchers is Clive Sinclair, who would advertise something and launch it in January, and it'd appear in December, and it'd be a completely different price to what he said it would be, and probably a different product. There was a lot of that went on, not from Sinclair as well, but from lots of other companies. I mean, Auric and the Tangerine Auric, what a thing that was! It's coming. It's not ready yet. Oh, it's here. Same with the Electron. The Electron was a complete disaster. The only people who got anything right seemingly were Commodore, because they were forced to by Jack Tramiel and to the left, and Amstrad. Amstrad was brilliant. I wanted a product in 3 months, and boom, there it was. And everybody else made an absolute bloody hash of it.
I think the thing with Amstrad was they expected it to last a couple of months, and they would move on to the next thing, and before they knew it, they had something that's still around now. With homeschool. But obviously, you had Dixons back then that would almost create their own offers. They'd buy so much stock in, they had the leeway to maneuver with packs of games and things like that, and obviously Tandies and various other outlets at the time. So plenty of leeway. So go on, sorry.
I just going to say, I remember we had Lewis Packwood, who's also an author, and we discussed Commodore. They did seem to get the ire up of most people within the industry. Obviously Atari tried to buy Amiga or bailed Amiga out, and then Commodore came in and bought them up, and
absolutely.
So they all the story of the 1200. Yeah, it's
sorry, Duncan, to cut you off, but but I'm just to let you know, Mike, I was born in 1989, so a little bit
nothing but a child.
I know, and your book goes up to 1988, so it's just and I'm not even. But
brilliant.
Throughout my lifetime, there's always been there was Sega initially, but it's been Nintendo, Sony, and now Microsoft.
Yeah.
But I was surprised looking at your book how many there were in the 80s, and none of them seemed to be there anymore. So it must have been quite volatile.
Yeah, it was very volatile. And if you were unfortunate enough, or your parents were unfortunate enough to walk into a shop and say, "Little Timothy wants a computer for Christmas," madam, we've got this special 16K pair computer with 3 keys and a keyboard that's rubbish on special offer for $49.99. It's ideal. And that's what people bought because they didn't know any better. So you ended up with a market full of rubbish, which is what we had.
Yeah, I guess today it's a lot easier for parents, isn't it? Because
it is. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot less. I mean, in some ways, there's so little selection now. You either buy a PlayStation or you buy an Xbox. That's it, or a Nintendo. That's it. There is no more selection. Back in olden days, the black and white days, you could pick 10 machines, but only one, perhaps 2, would be successful and still on sale in 12 months' time, or 2 years' time, or 3 years' time. But you don't know which one. So you have to choose. And if you get it wrong, you have to buy another.
But wasn't it a fascinating time to be able to walk into
magic?
A newly opened. I used to live in Crewe in Cheshire, and there was a game shop there, and it was stacked to the ceiling with cassettes and discs, and you would just look at the artwork and then the screenshots with the graphics and go, "That's amazing! I'm buying that one." And today I look at that now and I think that game shop was amazing, and I think of game shops now and they don't even compare, not even close.
No.
Same with the magazines as well.
The magic's gone, hasn't it?
Yeah, completely.
So would you say that you are, obviously we haven't really touched on actual games yet, but would you say you're mostly a fan of the hardware, the software, or is it like we have discussed before, there's the stories behind the hardware, which is what grabs you the most?
To be honest, all of it. But my passion is, I suppose, has developed over the years into hardware. Which machine has the fastest CPU, which has got the best graphics, which has got the most memory. What does memory mean? What about video memory? Do I need more video memory or less? Is it better to have more main RAM? Do I need a faster disk drive or a bigger disk drive? And all this sort of thing. And it was that sort of thing that led to so many arguments at school. Then when I left school and went to college, we had still the same arguments. But it was Atari and ST then. Things had moved on. But it was the same arguments. It was the arguments about things we had no idea. I had no concept about what RAM was or a CPU. I didn't know what a CPU was. All I've got is a black plastic keyboard that you plug some wires in and the TV turns blue. I don't know what it does. It was fantastic. Type a few words and it says error. It's great.
Back in those days, it was more, you could talk in terms of colours,
Yes.
or how many sprites it could have on screen, how much text it could remember. Whereas as soon as it got to, that's 50 million colours, everyone went, I don't really care.
No, it doesn't. It becomes, it's arbitrary. It doesn't matter anymore. It's just a number.
It's
and
like
the bit
10
ratio
teraflops.
You don't have 8-bit, 16-bit, 128-bit, 64-bit. That's all gone now.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
But if you go back in time to when we were, buying machines and things, it was, you had to know your stuff, or at least think you knew your stuff. So you had to read. You'd have to read, CVG or whatever's, whichever magazine was your favorite magazine to get information, as that was the only place you could get information. Yeah. There may be something on BBC One at 5 o'clock that tells you something about the latest, Pac-Man game, but invariably it'd be rubbish. So you didn't learn anything. So you had to buy a magazine, and the magazines were so flaky, dreadful things. They would either give you an incredibly boring synopsis of this machine that you've bought, some detailed characters and how big the ROM is, and the baud rate of the cassette, and you think, that means nothing to me. What the hell does that mean? Can it play, Spy Hunter? Will it run Elite? That's all I need to know. And then you go to school and you get berated for buying an Acorn Electron or whatever it is you've just bought.
I remember Tomorrow's World showing a demo of the Acorn, I think it was, and how it could play Space Invaders or a version of Space Invaders as it was. And there was something in the press where there was a mad rush. I think it was in the Sun. There was a mad rush after it had been aired on Tomorrow's World. Yeah. And Dixon had run out of stock. Yeah.
But it shows sort of how primitive times were back then.
Yeah.
You didn't have the internet. You didn't have specialist programs on TV. You didn't have YouTube or any of that sort of stuff. So the only place you got your information was either on the BBC News, if it ran an article on something, Clive Sinclair's been a punch up in a pub, or Commodore have fluffed the latest delivery and you'll have to wait for your VIC-20 for 6 months or whatever it was.
I've now just got Clive Sinclair and a fight in a pub in my head. That's only funny if you remember Clive Sinclair.
Yeah, if you're a certain age, they'll be chuckling at that, I suppose.
So I think God's software. What games?
My fascination with games started on the TI-99. When you got exotic names of things which bore no resemblance to what eventually popped up on screen. Then I moved to Sinclair Spectrum, and the Sinclair Spectrum was equally guilty of having fantastic artwork of, a swooping spaceship in a galaxy of whatever. You put the game in and it's just some dots with a triangle or something, and you think, what's going on here? It's rubbish. But obviously things moved on. But my fascination with games came from the outright lie that was on the cassette cover, the fictitious artwork which was there to make you buy it, and often had no resemblance to what the game was at all. I remember buying games and thinking, I don't remember what title it was now, but I bought something and I thought, this is a shooting game, but it wasn't. It was an adventure game. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But in those days, you had to rely on the cassette cover to tell you the information about, is this game any good? So you're listening to or reading the manufacturer's spiel about how good this title is to make a decision whether to spend your pocket money. That might be the only game you buy for a week or a month, and you're only judging it on that cover. There's some artwork, some dodgy artwork, and some rubbish writing. Am I going to buy this game? And it's crap.
Centipede comes to mind.
It's very much like things like Barbarian, wasn't it?
Barbarian.
And it had the big strong man with the sword and the woman pouring all over him.
Come on now, Maria Whittaker.
And obviously, Barbarian was an okay game for the time. It was. But it certainly didn't look like that.
No. I mean, you can look at things like, the conversation on games. It started with the TI, move on to the Spectrum. And as soon as I got a Spectrum, then you get the gangs of kids at school. We're Spectrum kids, we're Commodore kids, we've got a BBC. The three people in the corner. And that's when you sort of arguments about games and things. Have you got this? Have you got that? Have you got, the other Jet Set Willy, Manic Miner, Jetpack, and all the rest of it? And then you start talking about, yeah, but on my computer, on my version, is a blue character. Oh, my version is a yellow
colours,
character.
not 8.
Yeah, is it though? And then you get the wonderful arguments that we had about, does your game play music? No, but mine does. Haha. Has yours got real physics? I don't know. When Chucky Egg, when the man falls off the ladder, does he bounce about the screen as though he's real? Is a man in a hen house with a big hat? None of it's real. What the hell are you talking about?
I have many of these arguments between Amstrad and Spectrum owner, or maybe in the Amstrad owner and everyone else owning Spectrums. So I lost most times.
But you had
different arguments nowadays.
Yeah.
Now it's all about frames per second. People argue about.
FPS, yeah. A chap at work's been telling me his boys eventually worn him down to buy the new Xbox because it's got more FPSs than the old one.
Whereas it's the teraflops. It's all about teraflops now.
Well, he actually came into work and told me this. He said, I've got to buy my son a new Xbox because it's got more FPSs. I says, how many FPSs has it got? He says, I don't know, but it's got more than the old one, so I've had to buy it. So.
Whereas you were arguing about colours.
I used to buy that with the missus.
The thing is, they've probably got a TV that's restricted to 60 hertz anyway. So
Probably. Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about what TV you were playing on back then, or obviously if it was a.
Well, when I got my first machine, we only had one TV, so I was allowed to use my brand new, second-hand computer, which I'd only just got, probably half an hour. Yeah, can you turn it off now? Emmerdale's on. Oh, God.
Yeah.
And tapes as well.
Tapes, yeah.
Loading something for 5 minutes for it to just go fail. Yeah.
Tape load error.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Many syntax error or a joy. Yeah.
But then you had the joy of pokes and things like that.
Pokes, peek and poke. Yeah.
Where you could you could interrupt the loading and edit certain things if you knew what you were doing. Or you got them on things like your Sinclair would have pokes that you would load a game and then load another tape and then put the other original tape back in to load the rest.
That's
and
right.
it would give you infinite lives or change something minor.
Who has the patience for that now? Can you imagine?
Well, you say that if you stick a new game in an Xbox or a PS, whatever the hell it is, PS5, I rather suspect you've got to install 25 gigabyte before the thing will fire up, and then it'll have to update 50 times.
Yeah, thank God.
Although I've dug out my PlayStation Vita recently, and I've totally been spoiled with load times because I've got games and they're only taking about 20, 25 seconds to load.
Luxury.
But I'm sitting there going, "Come on, what's is it broken? Is it?" But then, so how 8-year-old me coped with loading games for 5 minutes?
We didn't know any better back then, did we?
No, we didn't.
That was our first exposure to very slow loading games. So
that's why he's got no body hair. Yeah. Self-harming while he's loading things.
I used to load things and then go read a magazine while it loaded.
Well, yeah. One of the things that fascinated me in the book is to see how many of the chipsets in the machines were underclocked.
Yeah.
And just how much there was to unlock in those machines, given the right circumstances and the right bits installed. So, yeah, you've kind of opened up a little bit of a can of worms for me on this one. So, I need to look into this a little bit more because
I did have a chat with Dave Haney at a show many years ago, and I did ask him, what's the fastest you got the 6502 or the whatever it was, the C64 chip to run at? He said we liquid cooled one to 10 megahertz.
Oh wow!
Before it broke. He said, but we couldn't do anything with it because the VIC chip had only run it just over 1 megahertz, and that it all corrupted. It wouldn't run. So it's completely pointless. The memory wasn't quick enough. The VIC chip wouldn't go any quicker. He said, but we got it to 10 megahertz.
That's all that matters.
Well, there was somebody, I'm pretty sure, I saw recently, there was somebody who worked out how to do ray tracing on, I think it was the Spectrum, or it might be Commodore. And it was, they obviously it didn't look like something pretty.
No,
it was
no,
still
no.
pretty ugly, but they worked out how to do it. It was the thing they did was something like one frame. It took about 5 minutes to render it. But yeah, so yeah, they're capable of anything. These old computers.
They are. They are absolutely. I mean, the thing that fascinated me about a computer is that computer, if your imagination is wild enough, can do anything. It can be anything. It can display anything. It can take you anywhere that your imagination will allow you to go, without being, silly about it. It's not going to take you to ancient Rome, but it can draw, a brown background and a couple of centurions or whatever. So if your imagination is wild enough, as a kid's is, in a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, that machine will transport you anywhere. And you could be a commander of an army, you can fly a spaceship, you can drive a racing car or a motorcycle or whatever else. And that was the joy of the machines back in those days. Yes, the graphics were rubbish. Yes, the sound was dreadful, more or less. But your imagination made it so much better.
Yeah.
Filled in the blanks, as it were.
Definitely. So what are you playing at the moment?
What am I playing at the moment? Well, nothing, much to my nephew's disappointment. I've got a fast... Underneath me is a desk that is full of PC parts. And my nephew is deeply disappointed in me that I have quite a fast PC with a big SSD drive and an RTX graphics card and blah, blah, blah. And it's all shoved in a box because I use it to put in my cases to demo them. When I finish demoing them, I take it out and shove it all back in the box and don't play anything. And he gets really annoyed with me because he wants to play whatever. Fortnite, whatever he wants to play on some ridiculously high resolution that you can't do at home. And he can't do it here because all the bits are shoved in a brown box in the floor. So he gets quite annoyed. But at the moment, I've been playing... I've actually gone back to Fallout 4. I've been playing through Fallout 4 briefly. Nothing to do with the TV show. I didn't even know the TV show was coming until I saw it advertised sort of a month before it came, which was a nice surprise. Really enjoyed that, by the way.
Yeah, it's very good. I've just finished it as well.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's very good. I've been messing about with Fallout 4, which I've played before. And I did download Fallout 76, which was, an unmitigated disaster on launch. But it's supposedly all right now.
Yeah, it is. I think it's one of these ones that's good with friends, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Just, I need to find some friends first.
Well,
see your friends, Duncan.
I mean, because I was brought up in the old days, I do like weird stuff. You can't get any weirder than some of the Sinclair Spectrum games, which were made by kids in their bedroom. Fat Worm Blows a Sparky or all that sort of nonsense. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous names that make no sense. Jet Set Willy. I mean, come on. But all that sort of stuff. Willy. So I like to go on Steam and look for the weird stuff that's, pre-alpha and all this sort of stuff, or demo or whatever. So I do download quite a lot of things, play it for 5 minutes and get rid of it. But I do like things like the Stanley Parable and
oh god, that was hilarious.
So funny. Nothing happens, but it's so funny. I love it. I thought it was great.
Do you follow instructions or do you not follow instructions?
No, never.
No. It's the first. Well, no. I the first thing I did was turn right when he said left. I got my wife to play it, and she just went. I got my wife to play it with my stepson playing it, and so he just looked at the right hand door at the very start, and she went, "What are you doing?" It said go left, and she just couldn't. She's not a gamer, so she was just like, "Oh, what?" It freaked her out that he was doing things that he shouldn't do. But
exactly. I mean, my wife the same. If something says go left, then there's no question. You'd go left. Instinctively, I will say, yeah, but what's right? Yes. I want to know what's over there.
There's got to be a secret.
What don't they want you to know? Usually nothing.
There's another one that's similar that breaks the fourth wall. Is There Is No Game. Have you
I don't know that.
It's on mobile and I think and PC, but it's one that says this isn't a game. Don't click on the screen, and so you click on the screen and it says, "Oh, well, you clicked on the screen." And it was done similar to Stanley Parable, where it was like a game jam thing, I think, and they've made a full game out of it, and it's brilliant. highly recommend you look that up if
No,
you like that kind of thing.
I will. Thank you.
I think it's called There Is No Game.
Okay.
Or something similar to that.
Yeah,
But
well,
very good.
I mean, things like that, weird things. I love weird things. And that, as I say, it goes back to the early Spectrum days, the weird stuff that was on there that's, it's, I don't know what people were smoking back then, but it was some good stuff.
Did you like go to arcades?
Infrequently.
Okay, so you're
on holidays and things, I'd go to the arcade and play Outrun and Hang On and all that sort of stuff. Quartet and all that. Later, Quartet came later. But I used to go into the arcades, and I was always surprised how good the arcades were and how detailed the graphics were. And then I'd go home and think, right, I need to buy whatever I just played. You'd go to the shop and get it, and it's some horrible splodges on the screen that bears very little resemblance to what you saw in the arcades. So I was generally disappointed. So I didn't buy very many arcade
because
conversions.
like you had like Space Invaders, that was like arcade, wasn't it?
Space Invaders.
You could get that.
Well, that was a challenge of computers and consoles back in the very early 80s, or late 70s, really, was to do a passable copy of Space Invaders. Some did better than others. I mean, you've got all kinds of weird and wonderful machines that came along that were better than the Atari VCS, but yet the Atari VCS sold all the copies and made all the money, whereas all the other machines failed. In a sensible person's world, the best machine should win, but that doesn't necessarily happen. And even in the 1980s with the 8-bit machines, the better machines didn't win. They didn't, I mean, if you look at the Sam Coupe, it was a fantastically clever machine, great graphics, great sound, all the rest of it. Came out too late. No one ever bought one. The company went bankrupt just after release. And that was the end of that, pretty much. Then you've got Sinclair selling his posh calculator that can do 8 colors and make bleepy noises. But yet he'll sell 5-6 million of them. And you think, yes, but the other machines were better than that. Or you could argue the Auric, it wasn't, but that came out. It was price for price, the same machine. The guys who worked at Sinclair made it, so it should have been better. Was it better? No. So they didn't last very long either. But the best machine didn't always win, unfortunately.
So when researching the book and whatnot, did you get to meet any heroes or people that maybe became heroes?
I've met quite a few. I've met quite a lot of not a lot. I've met a few of the old Commodore staff, purely because I used to go to, I still do. I go to more Commodore shows than anything else. I'm an old Commodore guy. I love the 64 and the Amiga. So I used to go to Amiga shows and they'd meet the Commodore guys. So I've spoken to quite a few of the Commodore engineers, and it's always interesting to have a beer and chat about what could have been, should have been, and was meant to happen, but didn't. That's always quite interesting.
Any plans for another book?
Yes, I am currently. I've revised 8-bit stories again because I can't leave anything alone. I noticed a few spelling mistakes and a few grammar errors and little bits and a few photos that really weren't quite as good as what I wanted. So I've been back through it and tweaked it, moved stuff about. So it's now, I hope, a better read than it was before. So you're more than welcome to
a remastered version of the.
And in 6 months I'll probably do it again because that's the sort of person I am. So if you want another copy, let me know and I'll fire one over, or 3. So I can't leave well alone, and it does annoy me when I'd like it to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, grammatically perfect, spelling perfect, the paragraphs in perfect symmetry. It will never be any of those things.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'd like it to be that. So I'll flick through it every so often and think, oh, Mr. Comma, and then go in and alter it. But there was quite a few mistakes in the earlier books, so I've gone back through it and tweaked those. So it's a better read now. But yes, as for another book, I've written the base manuscript for 16-bit stories, where I talk about it overlaps. So it's from 1985, the inception of the Atari ST, which was started before Jack Tramiel left Commodore and joined Atari, and then it talks about the birth of the Amiga, the Lorraine, which was 1984. It was all being developed and designed in 83, and how that came to be, and how Commodore purchased it and nearly bankrupted the company. And how that all flows into then the 8 bits and how the 16 bits were coming, and all the screenshots on the games you bought in the late 80s. You'd have, the shiny new Batman game. You think, oh, it looks great, but it's an Amiga picture. And you're buying it on the Spectrum. You think that's not right, but hey ho. And all that sort of thing. So I've written the foundations for it. I've split into chapters. It's all very rough and ready at the moment. So I will be chopping that about and going through it. I need to put photos in it and interviews and things. I've got quite a few interviews lined up, and quite a few recorded. So I need to type those up. Mm-hmm. So perhaps the end of this year, beginning of next, there will be
exciting. And do you think you'll move through the different eras?
Yes, I plan to do a full Douglas Adams inspired trilogy in 5 parts. So there'll be 32-bit era, which will be probably PC, I guess.
Yeah.
I won't do consoles because I don't know enough about them. Because I never really got involved with them.
You did get Saturn though. That was 32-bit.
I did get a Saturn.
You could have a special mention.
What about the Amiga console as well?
The CD32.
The CD32.
Yeah, I did have a CD. I did buy a brand new CD32.
Yeah.
That was a waste of money. But, and for a week, I thought it was great.
So what was it about the console? Because at the time you would have the NES, the SNES, the Mega Drive, the Master System.
What annoyed me more than anything else the consoles are great. Nothing against the consoles. I didn't like spending £30 or £40 on a game for it to be rubbish, and that was always in the back of my mind. I could stomach spending $1.99 on Kickstart and that being rubbish. It wasn't. It was quite good, but I could spend a few pounds, £5-10 on a game, and you could think, oh God, that's a waste of money, and be annoyed with yourself. But if I'd gone out and spent £50 on something, and it turned out to be rubbish, I would be extremely angry, and I should write to Barry Tuck and be very displeased. So it was the games that got me on consoles. They were too expensive, and cartridges,
And you couldn't do anything back in the 80s. You couldn't do anything with them. So, you can't do anything with the consoles, sort of now. But really. You couldn't do the pokes. You couldn't do the. You couldn't have. Pirated versions as well.
Exactly.
You couldn't copy your mate's tapes.
I've yet to see a Boots the Chemist cartridge for a Nintendo. There isn't one. But not only that, I enjoyed the games that had loads of buttons because I was an idiot kid who loved to know where all the buttons did. If you'd have a flight simulator or a tank or a boat or whatever it was, and it had loads of buttons, I'd think it was great because I'd write them all down on a bit of paper and think, right, this one makes it go left, this one goes right, this one elevates the turret, and think, blah, brilliant. So I'd be really deeply involved with pressing all the buttons, which you couldn't do on a...
Yeah, with home console, you have A and B, wouldn't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
So jumping platformers, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I did like the fact you could shove a cartridge and turn it on and the game's there. I did quite like that. That was good.
Yeah, and if you had an action replay, you could always chuck in a few cheats. And
the action replay, what a wonderful device.
Yeah.
Love my action replay. Marvellous.
In fact, my one kept my Super Nintendo going when I accidentally dropped it and it went upside down and destroyed the cartridge slot. If I put the action replay in there and then the cartridge on top and then tilted it in one direction, it still worked.
Brilliant.
Yeah. That's your version of blowing into the cartridge, isn't it?
We won't be talking about blowing on this podcast. So tell us about what you're doing now. What sort of industry are you in? What sort of things are you doing?
Work-wise, I work for I work for Singer UK, which is a Porsche sports car redesigner, and we rebuild Porsche sports cars and make them bigger, faster, flashier, and more shiny. And they cost lots and lots of money. So yeah, I work for those guys. So we're very busy at the moment making shiny motor cars.
I understand you have a bit of a side project as well.
I do. Thought we weren't talking about that. Oh, that side project.
Oh.
No, I thought that was pretty cool when I found this. Obviously, looking you up.
Was that on the website?
Commodore PET. Is it Commodore PET or PET?
PET.
PET. Commodore PET. Modern PC cases, but handmade, designed and built, and it has ATX cases that look like Commodore PET computers.
As with everything I do, there's a long story, but I'll narrow it down to a condensed version. Many years ago, I saw. Did I see? I saw. I don't know. I saw something, a picture or an advert or something for a Commodore educator, and I didn't know what that was. No idea what that was. Years later, I was reading through some internet. When the internet was new and shiny and not full of adverts, there was a website for the history of Commodore machines. It's probably still there. And it had the Commodore educator on there. And it's basically a Commodore PET, the square metal cased thing. But it's got a green screen, not colour for some reason, but green screen. And it's got a Commodore 64 inside it with a various little bits of add-ons. It's basically a Commodore 64 in a PET case. And I thought, what a cool idea. Never seen one. I'm going to make one. So I looked around and bought a second-hand busted PET. And I had this busted PET for probably 10 years, sat there doing nothing. So I thought, right, I'm going to strip it and convert it. I couldn't bring myself to pull it apart, even though it was rusty and it was a mess of a thing, which I've since rebuilt and it now works. But I couldn't bring myself to pull it apart and, cut it up and change it. So I didn't do that. So I thought, right, I'll make one. I'm going to make one from scratch. So I measured the case and all the dimensions and all the fittings needed and things. And then I started sort of drawing it up. And I was chatting to a chap at work who's a designer, CAD designer. I said, could you draw me up in 3D a case like this? He said, yeah, I'll do that for you. He said, what's it for? I said, right. It's a 1970s machine that's going to have a 1980s computer in it. He said, well, that'll be rubbish, won't it? I said, well, yeah. He said, well, you put a new one in it. I thought, a new one? Yeah, so I went and thought about that for a while. And then I discounted that and I instantly thought, right, I'm going to put an Amiga in it. So I thought, right, I'm going to put an Amiga 500 in it because that's the most common. It's the cheapest. It's the one that's got most of the bits that people plug into. And it's the most common machine you'll find. People have got motherboards scattered about in sheds and lofts and things. So they won't mind shoving one in a case. So we worked it all out, got all the dimensions and all the sizes and blah, blah, blah. And then as luck would have it, the Amiga 500 keyboard is within a couple of millimeters exactly the same size as a modern PC keyboard. So a full PC-sized keyboard is an Amiga 500 keyboard, dimensionally, more or less, with the arrow keys and keypad on. So whilst we did that, I said, oh, look, just make the slot a bit wider. So if I want to, I can put a PC keyboard in it. And then it sort of evolved from that to put in ATX, AT, mini AT, different size power packs. Then it became, well, it needs to be a 4:3 screen. You can't get 4:3 screens anymore. I spent thousands of hours trying to find a 4:3 screen. Did find a 4:3 screen eventually, imported them from China, and they're awful. But I now had a box full, so I thought I'm going to put one in. So I put one in, advertised it for sale. Someone bought it straight away. I thought, oh, I'll make another. Did another. That went straight away. And then I took two to a show in a floodlit, strip light lit room, big room. And the reflection from the lights on the screens was awful. I didn't like it. It's all pasty and horrible. I thought, oh, I don't like that at all. I'm going to put an IPS 4K high resolution screen in there so you can see what the hell you're doing. Which meant redesigning most of it all over again. So we did that over the winter. So now I have cases with touch screens, 1080p and 4K coming along, which I'll be demoing in a month. So So I'm putting myself under pressure as usual to get it done, which I like to do.
Excellent.
And then I'll moan about it.
No, they look fantastic. I've put a picture of them up on the screen, the video, for those that want to see.
The only downside.
On the website.
Oh, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. The only downside about making bespoke things is it costs so much money. It's ridiculous. Having bespoke metalwork made, cut, shaped, folded, painted, it costs a fortune. I worked it all out sort of 5 years ago when I was toying this idea, and I thought, right, okay, £60 for this, £65, £50 for that, £75, blah blah blah, and I added it all up, and I came to a figure of something like £399. I thought, if I can get £399, that's good. I'll right, okay. Then I didn't do anything with the project for about a year, because I was too busy at work. A year later, priced it all up again. It had gone up £100. Okay. Then the pandemic hit. Okay. Then just after the pandemic, I started making another two. So I priced it all up again. It gone up another £100. So now everything cost me. What the 300 quid I thought it is now getting on for nearly 600.
And then Liz Truss happened.
And then Liz Truss. You can trust Truss. No, you can't.
No, you can't.
Yeah. So, but no.
Oh no, I mean it does say. I should probably say that it does say sold out currently, but
MVT, where are they? Where
MVTcomputers.com.
We'll put the links in the show notes as well. But,
link in the show notes.
Michael, feel free to make an Amstrad Mini, please. We'll.
There is a link to the
quite necessary
the book there as well.
There is, and guys, if just for our listeners, it is a fantastic insight into 80s 8-bit and insights into all the machines, companies, some of the stories and the technical side of things. So do go and purchase it and check it out. And we look forward to the next version. 16-bit. We'd love to have you back on to review the next one as well.
Anytime. I am available to chat nonsense at any time.
You're always welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us. And
been a pleasure.
We'll catch up on the next edition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was our interview there with Michael Nurney. So you want to check out the pet cases, I think you were saying, Duncan. It's mbtcomputers.com, 8-bit stories. It's obviously the book.
There's a link to the book on the website, but we will put it in the show notes. So, yeah.
No, I really enjoyed that interview, considering a lot of it was prior to live. So no, really interesting. And
do you feel like do you regret that you maybe missed out on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, if I could go back, I would try and get my mum and dad to meet a bit earlier. But
you weren't even a sperm in that era. I mean, you know, that was pre-evolution.
I know. What time to miss out on?
But you had the delight of being a small child when things like the Super Nintendo was, and then the Saturn and whatnot. That you got the Saturn and were really pleased with it.
Yeah,
and the N64.
Yes, PlayStation 1. See, I was an adult when the PlayStation 1 came out, and yeah, and so that made it less probably less sort of amazing. Yeah. Whereas the Spectrum, which if you look back at it now, it's not very many colours and everything. I've got a lot of rose-tinted spectacles with a lot of things from that era. So,
what were the first consoles you both bought with your own money? Like job-wise?
Oh, actually, well, handheld. It was Game Boy for me.
Yeah.
But if you're home console, I didn't buy a home console until the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, mine was PlayStation 1, but mainly PlayStation 2.
The PlayStation 2 area. I mean, I had the PS2. That didn't work because I had the green screen DVD laser thing problem, and so I got a Dreamcast and then got a PS2 after that. Which by the time they'd sorted out the problems. So yours, Martin?
probably a PS3 if it was from work. I bought consoles with birthday money. Like
That's what I did with the Game Boy. That
so
was
I
just
got the
birthday
original
money.
Xbox with my birthday money.
Ah.
I have one major regret with the Xbox original. What was the one that played DVDs and you needed the remote control?
That was the
That
original.
was the
Yeah.
OG, yeah.
Someone came into my work and wanted to sell his, and he offered all the games, the remote control, the whole setup, 2 controllers, whatever, and he wanted 20 quid for it. And I was like, and I turned it down. This was, I know, this is before I started really getting back into collecting at the time, and I turned it down. And this would have been when the Xbox was out. So we're talking what, late 90s, early 2000s, something like that.
Something like 2001, 2002.
Yeah. So it was still relatively new, and he wanted £20 because he had no money to get home. And I said no. What was wrong with me?
What?
Mental.
You didn't even let him get home, Tom.
No, I didn't.
No, Livy.
I was his boss as well.
He's still there trying to sell his Xbox.
So it was snowing at the time outside, so I did let him go early.
Even with the hardware, I mean, there's things like, do you remember Blink's the Time Cat or the Time Sweeper or something?
Wow.
There was things like that where having a hard drive meant they could do these new things, and all it did was Blink's. It recorded what you were doing, and so you could rewind time, you could fast forward time, and whatnot, and so the fact that you could do that was just an amazing thing.
You could do that on the Sands of Time as well, couldn't you? Prince of Persia.
Yeah, I mean, in the PS2, kind of, they did do that. Yes, you could rewind time.
But yeah,
how they did that, I don't know. But
the Xbox was the first. Well, I don't know. I think it was the first console with the built-in sort of memory.
Yeah, it was the first built-in. You could get a hard drive for the PlayStation 2. I believe
you could,
but it was like it had to go in the network adapter.
It went in the back. There was like a big open space that you could unlock and put it in there.
That's where the network adapters went in as well, wasn't it? I think.
Yes, I think so. It was about £50, I think, which was quite a lot back then. So yeah. But also, it reminds me, you talk about those things that you could record and look back on. Who remembers the PlayStation disc with the dinosaur?
Oh yes, the first demo disc. Yeah.
And that was like ultra realistic in that era. And
okay, right. If you want to go back, who remembers the clown on PCs back in the 90s? Was it Windows 3.1?
Is that the one on the rolling ball?
I can't remember what it was, but there was. I think it was a clown. Was it a clown? But there was 3D things in Windows that you had to type in a certain command and it would do it. And it was wow, 3D. So this would have been early 90s. Ooh, blimey. But yes, I do remember the realistic dinosaur. Yeah, that was demo disc number 1.
Yeah, they're sought after now. They're worth quite a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there was the paperclip, wasn't there? The 3D paperclip that would appear on Windows Millennium Edition, and that would just suddenly pop up and give you tips.
I think people have blocked out Windows.
I really loved it. And I had a Homer Simpson or a Simpsons screensaver where Homer would walk across the screen and he would say "Dole," and then you had Sideshow Bob that would walk into the
rake,
and it'd hit him in the face, and you go, ugh. So, yeah.
Was that like something where when you got it, you're like, oh, this is going to be really funny, and then after the 10th time of turning,
do you know what?
Well,
you used to be able to get these screensavers, and I don't know if you remember this, Mike, but you used to be able to get screensavers in what was the pound shop back in the day. They come in a box, and they'd either be like a music video or an animation. The Simpsons one, I never got tired of it because it looked like the cartoon. But the Star Trek one, that got on my tits. And there was also a Michael Jackson from the History album one, and that was mega annoying. And the video was tiny because that it couldn't cope with playing the video any other way, and that was irritating as well because it was always like jumping into the song Childhood and too much.
it was big deal, wasn't it? Or big industry having screensavers and whatnot.
My old phone that I was chatting about last week. Myself and my partner were talking about it. We're just saying, remember when people used to buy screensavers for their phones?
Yeah,
it would be like a terrible pixelated screen mask or something, and then when people would buy ringtones, wouldn't they? Well, nowadays, people just have their phone on silent, whereas back in the day, you would have like I don't know, like an Eminem song coming through.
Yeah.
Like, deep, deep, deep,
and you've got mail. Do you remember that one for the messages? You've got mail.
Oh, that was AOL, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the first broadband I ever had was AOL. Well, I had to have it because all of the broadband providers required a credit card, and I only had a debit card. And so the only one that took debit card was AOL. And so, I had AOL for a couple of years. Awful experience. I ended up nearly taking them to court, but that's for another.
That's another story.
Another story. That's
God.
They were fined something like, I think it was $1.5 million
from you.
I wish, but no, for doing the same thing basically for bad practices. So
my first was Blue Yonder, and then I had a dial-up, which was 1 penny a minute. This was before you could get unlimited dial-up.
Yeah, 1 penny, 1 penny a minute.
I think it was a free serve.
Free serve. They had the lifetime connection. Like you could pay something like £100, and that was it. You could have free internet for life.
Yeah.
And my dad still had free serve email address until it stopped being a thing. Oh God, I want to say it's within the last sort of 7 years.
It wasn't for life then.
No, it wasn't for life.
Your dad could sue.
I had shares in free serve.
Oh dear!
I know we were gifted them by the Dixon's group when I worked there.
Okay.
I think I had like £500 worth of shares. And we eventually
that was suddenly worth 500 pence.
Well, I sold them just before it went tits up and made some money out of it, so I was okay. Nice. And then I had do you remember Coolshaw numbers? So it was called BT Coolshaw, and they would sell unique telephone numbers. It'd be like 007
0101001.
Yeah. And eventually they went down to a penny a card. So we just bought all of them and then sold them to all our mates for like a couple of quid each, made money off it. But obviously we grabbed all the best numbers. Many great things. But I had a T100 Samsung flip phone that had the first TFT screen, and it had a 5-second animated aquarium. And then you could change it between several different things, like a UFO and God knows what else. But we were so fascinated by this amazing screen. And what we would do, working in phones at the time, a new phone would be announced. So we'd get rid of it, get another one, and every month you'd have a new phone and a new game and a new whatever. So good times.
Well, yeah, I just think back to they were good games like Snake and whatnot, but it was like going back in time with the internet with WAP.
Oh yeah.
And let's face it, porn was like the strip poker things from the Spectrum days. It wasn't sexual at all. It was pretty dire. Live information was live-ish because it was basically internet light, but internet very light compared to nowadays.
Yeah.
Not good. But anyway, talking of on this day, have we got anything big from on this day that anyone's found?
I saw from not exactly on this day, on the 18th of May.
Okay,
it was 2 days away. 9 years ago, The Witcher came out. Duncan, which I know you're a
Witcher 3.
Witcher 3. Yeah, sorry, I should have
Wow,
said.
that's 9 years old. Wow.
It's crazy.
And the
That is-
original Red Dead Redemption came out 14 years ago on that same day as well. So
Okay. I'm looking up for Enter the Matrix. Now, I know the original Matrix movie came out was 1999. But Enter the Matrix, the game, came out 21 years ago. That's a blast from the past.
It's still a great game.
It was an okay game, but it was
the only issue I had is that you would get it thinking you're going to be Neo, and then you end up in, I think it was or someone like that. You're just like, who are these nobodies I've got?
It was very cinematic, wasn't it, for the time? For the time,
you had the bullets in it with the the slow motion bullets, which I know Max Payne also did, didn't they? Sort of around the same sort of time when they did the slow motion bullets, which was quite impressive at the time. But
oh yes,
yeah, I like the game. Yeah, the only thing for me was that you weren't the main characters from the movie, which.
Well, the other one that is actually even more surprising, 22 years old, that is still going very popular nowadays, is Final Fantasy XI. Now, granted, Final Fantasy XI from 22 years ago is nothing to do with the game that's out now. It's very much changed. But yeah, it's still going, still popular. Although Final Fantasy, I want to say 14 has probably overtaken it. I'm sure Final Fantasy 11 is still going, isn't it? I'm not wrong, am I? Please tell me I'm not wrong. Because Final Fantasy 14 is the main online, the online one. Isn't massively, so it's still going. Yeah, still going. Platforms, PlayStation 2, Microsoft Windows, Xbox 360, and still going.
There's a game here for a console that I've never heard of. Sharp A68000 or A68000.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that one.
Great machine.
I don't know that one.
Mom, do you know it?
Yeah.
Any good?
You wouldn't let me down.
It was good, actually. Yeah, it was good. So I was just trying to Google it, but
X68000, I reckon. The game is called Flanix, the N-Force Fighter A144. So,
now we talked about Breakout last week, in the last episode. Now that came out, but what we did talk about as well was on the same day, 23 years ago, was Crazy Taxi 2.
Oh.
Such a good game. Such a good game.
This one will shock you. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was released
2001, I'm going to guess.
Was released 25 years ago.
25?
Yeah.
So that's when the film came out. The film was also 1999.
Phantom Menace. Was that one?
Yeah. Episode 1.
Was that on the N64?
That was on the N64 and PC.
Yeah, I remember it.
And obviously, we've just had the 25th anniversary re-release of Phantom Menace at the cinema. So, highest grossing re-release for any cinema in the cinema ever. So,
I say, it doesn't matter what the various Star Wars haters and everything say, or even those that like Star Wars that say, I enjoyed the prequels when they came out. Yes, okay, there may be problems with this and new ones and whatnot, but as individual films, I quite enjoyed, especially seeing what's his face, Yoda with a lightsaber and actually fighting.
Yeah.
For me, because being the age I am, The Phantom Menace was the first Star Wars film that came out when I was alive.
And me first. Oh no. The first one when I was old enough to understand it, because episode 5 and 6 came out while I was alive.
I know parents were getting excited, and I was like, "Well, Darth Maul with the double lightsaber. That was pretty cool.
yeah.
That was awesome.
People didn't like Jar Jar Binks on it. He was the one who got a lot of stick.
Do you know he was originally meant to be played by Michael Jackson?
What, Jar Jar Binks?
Yeah. How crazy is that?
Glad he
Yeah, I
didn't.
mean, that was crazy. I mean, that guy got death threats and everything, and it was no. I mean, the guy. I mean, he's been interviewed. I thought
it was an actual person, is it?
Jar Jar Binks, the guy who did the voice. I mean, apparently he nearly committed suicide and all sorts because of the hatred and everything. It was just disgusting, and
It was.
and you get three types of Star Wars fans. You get the ones who are just like, it's Star Wars, I love it, kind of thing. You get the fair weather ones, which I'm a bit of, I like Star Wars, it's good, but I'm not purposely gonna get everything Star Wars. And then you get the really, unfortunately, lots of toxic ones.
Yeah.
And if you don't like something, that's fine. You don't have to like a particular part of it. But you know what? It's doesn't mean that something's trash. It doesn't mean that something's, you need to hate on something. Just go, I don't like that. Okay.
Well, on that note, I'm going to give you one final game which will shock you. Are you ready?
Come on.
Wii Fit was released 16 years ago.
Oh, blimey. I was in my 20s.
Did you have the Wii Fit board?
Nearly.
I had it and broke it.
That's not good, is it?
Now, is that commenting on you, or is that commenting on the Wii Fit's quality?
Well, in that era, I was slim.
Did you break
So the
it?
quality.
So the quality was the fact that I let it drop off the
standing
sofa
on it
and
that you
smash.
broke it. It wasn't. You didn't like smash it up or something.
No, I just dropped it off the sofa and it obliterated it, which I managed to do with the Virtual Boy as well. So
Oh, no.
I just need to be more careful. So yeah. So yeah. There we are.
Excellent. Right, so a good episode all round, I think, with Mr. Nurney. And
Next week we're talking about our gaming mistakes. Gaming
I
mistakes.
think big regrets or mistakes, things that you think, oh God, I just
I'm
spent
gonna have to.
full
I'm gonna have
price
to
on
have a
that.
good think about that because I'm sure there are. But
We've got a week to think.
probably
about.
like me headbutting my Game Boy Advance. That'd be regret. But
It's disturbing.
purchases would be something I'll look for as well. I have smashed up quite a lot of game things, so I'll write a list.
Do you have anger issues, Martin?
I do enjoy your stories of destruction, Martin.
That game about that was Mario Kart. I think I did smash up a PlayStation controller playing Abe Odyssey. So on the PlayStation.
That was a tough game.
I think I snapped an Amstrad joystick once out of frustration.
All right. Next,
I'll save it.
episode 45. Episode
Save it.
45, boys.
Yeah. This is a preview, guys. So
Yeah. So
check out our Facebook page and let us know your gaming mistakes ready for next week, and we'll read some of the comments on there. How about that?
Yep. And this is a surprise to the other two on the podcast. I have actually set up a Patreon. It's not fully set up yet, but it's basically at the moment it's a buy us a coffee kind of thing. So more, you can currently buy us coffee, but it might get expanded in a future update. But I'll let you know. Right.
There we are.
So
Goodbye.
on that note,
Till next time.
Bye.